Hello, students. Good evening. Hope you are doing well. Actually, I was since long time. I think it's 15 days, and then I have got time to make one more video. So let us start. And today's topic is A Tale of Two Cities. So we are going to discuss about it. Yes, before proceeding, I would like to tell you that I'm going to make three videos on it. One is in English, another one is in Hindi, and one is in a mixed language, so that in which you're comfortable you can see. But I would like to listen you. I would like to have feedback. So please write your comments on comment box and send it to me. So let us start. This novel comes under historical novel because this the tale of two cities, England and France, right? So that is why it comes under historical novel. A Tale of Two Cities is a historical novel published in 1859. Please remember that's a publication year is 1859 by Charles Dickens, set in London and Paris before and during the French Revolution. Please remember the time that was the before and during French Revolution was started and then is what published. The novel tells the story of the French doctor Manet, his 18-year long imprisonment in Bastille in Paris, which is Bastille prison, which is situated in Paris, and his release to live in London with his daughter Lucy Manet, whom he had never met because when she was born, this man or Dr. Manet had left for the prison. That is why they never met. The story is set against the conditions that led up to the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. So that's a very tough, crucial condition which was going on in France, and that is why this novel is against to the contemporary conditions, right? Okay, French Revolution, very important. At least basic knowledge you should have about a French Revolution. What is it? So the French Revolution was a period of political and social changes, right? So there were changes which like was imposed to common people, and they were doing like dictatorship. They were doing whatever they want to. They just dictate, and that's why common people have decided to root out the monarchy, and that's why they have like what we can say that raise their voice, and this one day the common people openly against the ruling government, and that was the kingdom system, and king was not what we can say that efficient to run the country, and that's why they were very against the person. So let us see what's the French Revolution. It was the period of French political and social change in France that began with the Estates General of 1789. Please remember, it was started with the States General of 1789 and ended with COP of 18 Brumaire in November 1799 and formation of French consul means that's a ambassador, right? So French ambassador, that with the formation of French ambassador in 1799 it was over. Now duration, what's the duration? The French Revolution was a period of time in France when the people overthrew the monarchy, like it was the saturation, and then people have decided to root out the dictatorship, and then that's a took control of the government, and power was in the government. So that the French Revolution lasted 10 years. So this revolution went on for 10 years from 1789 to 1799, and it began date, just remember, it began on 14th July 1789, and for 10 years 1799 it went on. And when revolutionaries stormed a prison called Bastille. So what's the Bastille prison? We will see. So then common people, that revolutionaries, they stormed a number of people, and then they were inside the Bastille prison. So what is Bastille prison? Bastille fortress. फ्रांसीसी क्रांति के दौरान ये जेल एक कठोर शासन का प्रतीक बन गया, क्योंकि वो देवर वेरी मच क्रूअल एंड द वेरी लाइक वेरी सीवियर पनिशमेंट दे यूज टू गिव. फ्रांसीसी क्रांति के दौरान 14 जुलाई 1789 को बड़ी तादाद में, दैट्स अ रॉन्ग स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक, बड़ी तादाद में, मैनी बड़ी तादाद में फ्रांस की जनता बेस्टाइल जेल के बाहर जमा हुई. You just have to remember this time, that's a many people, so many people, they have gathered in front of Bastille cell, एंड जनता ने जेल पर हमला बोल दिया. और फिर आपने ऐसे कई इवेंट देखे होंगे, मैं आपको रेकमेंड करूँगी सद्दाम हुसैन गद्दाफी वाला, दैट्स अवेलेबल इन गूगल. यू कैन सी दैट हाउ लाइक आफ्टर वन पीरियड, लाइक जब फ्रस्ट्रेशन आ जाता है, श्रीलंका वाला इवेंट देख सकते हैं आप. तो फिर कैसे गवर्नमेंट के, रूलिंग गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ हो जाती है जनता, और फिर हाउ डू दे लाइक राइट्स, एंड देन व्हाट वी कैन से दैट दे डू वट एवर, सारा फियर ख़त्म हो जाता है, एंड दैन दे आर रेडी टू फेस राइट. सो जेल में मौजूद 7 कैदियों को छुड़ा लिया, और वहाँ पे 7 कैदी जो थे उनमें से ये डॉक्टर मैनेट भी होते हैं, उनको भी वो छुड़ा लेते हैं. इस तरह से ये बेस्टाइल फोर्ट्रेस जो था वो एक तरह का कठोर शासन का या बहुत ही टॉर्चर का सिंबल था. चलिए, नाउ फ्रेंच रिवॉल्यूशन. In the year 1789, French Revolution started, leading to a series of the events started by the middle class. Because I said common people, middle class, they were very frustrated, and then the people had revolted against the cruel regime of monarchy, and then they were not in situation to bear, and that's why they were against. This revolution had put forth the ideas of liberty. We need to have liberty. We want to breathe in free air and fraternity as well as equality, and then they want to have their friends and equality, and they were demanding, and that's why they were against the ruling government. Now, last king of France, who was the last, because kingdom system monarchy was ended, so who was the last king, the king like in 1799 up to 1799? So that's a Louis XIV. He was born on 23rd August 1754 and died on 21st January 1793 Paris, and was the last king of France in 1774 to 92. Okay, 92 he was the last king in the line of Bourbon monarchs preceding the French Revolution of 1789. So the last king was Louis XIV, right? Okay. Main aim of French Revolution. Why French Revolution was done? The main aim of French revolutionaries was to overthrow the monarchical rule and the ancient regime. So that was the regime, or that's a kingdom system, was they were common people, middle class, were not ready to accept, because sometime the candidate is what we can say that deserving, or sometime not deserving, and that's why they have decided, because Louis XIV and before other like kings, they were not deserving. So the French in France, an establishment of republican government, right, for the people, by the people, of the people, right. So that's a democracy and republican government to create a sense of collective identity amongst the French people by banning the state system and essential social changes based on liberalism. like everyone should be given equal opportunity, liberal, freedom, everything. This was the main aim of French Revolution. Now, come to the novel. What's the novel? So, base of the novel tells the story of Dr. Manet. We had already read this. That's the, and he was present, and this is I have deliberately repeated so that we'll come to know what was the base. So that's the story. Starts with Dr. Manet. He is the French doctor, and since long 18 years he was present, and he never saw unfortunately his own daughter, because when he left, and then the after uh, after when like his leaving, this girl was born, right, and her name is Lucy Manet. So this is the base. Okay, details. What's the details? Dickens edited a weekly journal. That's the author's detail actually. Dickens edited a weekly journal for 20 years, wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and non-fiction articles, lectured and performed readings extensively. So 150 novels he has written, right? And he worked, edited a weekly journal 20 years, then 15 novels, 5 novellas are smaller than novels, and then hundreds of short story, okay, and non-fiction articles, lectured, performed readings extensively, was an in indefatigable means not fatigue, not tired, any time he was ready to do, letter writer, and campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education and other social reforms. So dynamic, multi, what we can say that hmm, very much multi-dynamic personality, versatile personality he was, right? So that's the detail of the author. Now his celebrated works are the Pickwick Papers. Please remember, very famous work, Pickwick Paper, Oliver Twist, very famous, Nicholas Nickleby, right? The Old Curiosity Shop, okay. Now Barnaby Rudge, and these are the works. But that David Copperfield, Oliver Twist, Pickwick Paper, these are the very famous works. So please remember, and when you do an exam, please remember at least 4 to 5 famous works of the author. Now chapters and parts, very important. 45 chapters are there in a novel, was published in 31 weekly installments in new literary periodical title All the Year Round. This was the periodical, this was the journal All the Year Round, in which 31 weekly installments, so that the serially it was published. But yes, there are 40 chapters in the novel. A Tale of Two Cities is divided into 3 sections, and very important, please keep in mind, 45 chapters are there, and then it was published in 31 weekly installments, right? And the paper journal name was All the Year Round, and it was basically divided into 3 parts. First section, that is Recall to Life, please remember. Then it was published in 1775. Then second book, The Golden Thread, 1780 to 1789, and the not published, sorry, that's a written. And then the third book was, that's a Track of Storm. This was written in 1792, so 1793, and serially it was published in the book, but as a book as a whole it was published in 1859, right? Okay, now discussion. The opening line, very important, because the opening line of Pride and Prejudice, opening line of this novel, opening line of Burn Norton by T.S. Eliot, that's a poetry. Then opening line of Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. Some of the opening lines are very much famous, so please keep in mind opening line of Tale of Two Cities. What's the line? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. this is actually something more here to be added. So in next slide, next when I am going to speak in Hindi or mixed language, I'm going to add back, because that's very important. Even you can start your question with these lines, very important, right? So actually this is a contradiction. So here uh, you can remember these lines, and that's a example of figures of speech. So I'm going to speak in next slide, otherwise it will be mixed. But yes, I'm going to add some more lines here. Embodied embodies the dichotomy or comparison that Dickens sets up between London and Paris. So he was selling that good time and best time. Same thing actually T.S. Eliot spoke in the Burn Norton. That's a in next slide I'm going to speak right now. I don't remember, but remember. But yes, similar idea was thrown by T.S. Eliot also, right? Anyway, the characters find destruction, death, and revolutions in Paris. Huh? So what are the characters? Characters find destruction, because when we read novel we'll come to know that destruction, death, revolution, Paris, and chaotic time, and very much tough time. So same we will find in this novel, right? Now, death and revolution in Paris, and peace, safety, and comfort in London. So in Paris there is very troublesome time, and in London very peace, safety, and comfort in London, and England was happy, right? So this was the beginning. Now I'm going to speak story. But before proceeding, I would like to tell you about the characters. So what are the characters? Very important. There are some families. First family, around this family, whole story revolves around this family. Manet family is there. Then Defarge family is there. Then Evermond family, okay, and then Cruncher family, and then other characters. So first is that's a Manet family. Manet family we had already discussed. Dr. Alexander Manet, please take care of full name. So it's a father and daughter, Lucy Manet, she is the daughter, and Jervis Lorry. Jervis Lorry is the good friend of Dr. Manet, right? So that's a Dr. Manet was an accomplished French physician who gets imprisoned in the Bastille, but unfortunately he was taken to the prison. Lucy Manet is the daughter of Dr. Manet and Charles' wife, and later she becomes Charles Darnay's wife, right? Then Jervis Lorry is a very good friend of Dr. Manet. He had been a good friend of Dr. Manet and he a confidential clerk at Tellson's bank. So he works in a bank. So this is the first family we meet. Then Defarge family. Who are in Defarge family? Mansour Defarge, husband, and Madame Defarge, wife, right? And then uh, who is Mansour Defarge? The owner of wine shop in Paris. Paris. Please take care. Don't switch, oscillate in Paris and London. You have to take care of the places. So here there's a Paris suburb. The former servant of Dr. Manet Defarge uses his Paris wine shop. He was the former servant of Dr. Manet, and now he runs wine shop as a place to organize French revolutionaries, and he is a French revolutionary. Okay, now then the wife of Mansour Defarge, she is Madame Defarge, known as Madame Defarge, assists the revolutionaries, and she is one of the biggest leader of revolutionaries by stitching the name of their enemies into her knitting. And then she used to do knitting, and she stitched her enemy's name. And she is a hard, vengeful lady and revengeful lady, right? So this is the Defarge family. Evermond family, very rich, well-known family. And then Monsignor Marquis Evermond, right? and a proud and brutal French, very like a high-headed person, brutal French aristocrat who shows no regard for the lower classes, and they are very snobbish, and suppress used to suppress lower class people. And his twin brother, now dead, and when when we come to know, so that we come to know that uh, Marcus Evermont has one more brother, twin brother, and now he is dead. Was uh, dead was Charles Darnay's father. So he was none other than Charles Darnay's father, making Darnay next in line to inherit. And then, of course, the Charles Darnay is going to have a property. What would happen in the story, we are going to see. Now Charles Darnay is the male protagonist of this novel, and a French immigrant to England. Actually, he lives in England, and he's an immigrant. He has come from France, and who renounces his French title and inheritance. He does not like to take any property from the state, and he renounce his surname also, title also, right? Who? Charles Darnay. And then Cruncher family, Jerry Cruncher husband, Mrs. Cruncher name is not given, wife, and they have baby young Jerry Cruncher, right? And a messenger for Tellson's bank, he is a messenger, and Jervis Lorry's bodyguard, and he is the bodyguard of Jervis Lorry. Okay, other major characters, so what are they? Sydney Carton, another protagonist, another hero of the novel. We will see how. And a London, he by profession he was a London lawyer who had great potential but has fallen into a life of alcoholism and vice, but because he used to take much alcohol, and this way he spoils his life. And then Mansour Gabel, a French postmaster. He was the postmaster by profession, whose harassment by revolutionaries causes Charles Darnay to return to Paris. When he writes and to Charles Darnay, Mr. Gabel, and that's why Charles Darnay has to return to Paris. Otherwise, Charles Darnay lives in England, London, right? Now Roger Clay, a British spy, he was the British spy. Then Solomon Prose or John Bursard, a spy, he is also a spy and informer, and Mr. Stryver, and he's the ambitious lawyer. And Sydney Carton and Mr. Stryver, they work together, but they don't have much good relation. Who? Both are lawyer, Sydney Carton and Mr. Stryver, right? Now other characters, Miss Prose comes at last. Lucy Mannett's loyal and red faced maid. So she's a maid, and she is very loyal to Lucy Manette. Then Jack, Jax 1, Jax 2, Jax 3, Jax 4, 5, right? So these are the Jax, and French revolutionaries are associated with Defarge family, and they help to Defarge family. Now Roger Clay, he is also spy. So who is spy? That's a British spy, Roger Clay, and that's a it is being repeated, but that's the same character, right? Now what's the story I'm going to tell? Just listen. Story is that when story opens, and then um, Jervis Lorry. Jervis Lorry, a senior citizen, he is going to meet Lucy Manette, and he uh, he tells, and then when he reaches to Lucy Manette's home, he tells about her father, Dr. Alexander Manette, and he says that we have to bring uh, uh, bring our your father, Dr. Alexander Manette. So this way, Lucy and Jarvis Lorry, they go to uh, where to Paris, right, to bring Mr. Dr. Manet, sorry, Dr. Manet from the prison. As they reach there, and then as Lucy sees first time his father, so he was sitting in a corner in a bench, the corpse bench, and he is making shoes. So Lucy is not able to stop herself, and she cries because she Dr. Manet has lost his memory, and he is kind of mad, and he is just making shoes. By profession he is a physician. So Lucy is paining like anything, but then she thinks that I will give a lot of love, I will take care of my father, and my father, one day he is going to revive. So she brings to her father, and she takes much care of father, and one day Dr. Manet recovers, and memory and everything is restored, and he is normal. And this is the first story. So that there everything is fine and normal days, and they started living like good life, normal life. At the same time, there is another, um, they live in the Paris, right? And now what happened, that's they come back to London, sorry, they come back to London, they start living happily. Now one day they receive one notice that they have to go to the court, um, for um, for the court, they have to present in the court. So they go, and then here what happened, they meet Charles Darnay and Sydney Carton. They have come for that's a hearing, a court hearing. And then what happened, they meet, and then hearing was over. And uh, as Charles Darnay, first at first look, as Charles Darnay sees to Lucy Manet, and he falls in love with Lucy, and Lucy also loves to Charles Darnay, and this way they start meeting. And then Sydney Carton, Charles Darnay, they many a time, oftenly they visit to Lucy's home, because you know that I have mentioned that Charles Darnay, though he comes from France, but he is immigrant, and he lives in London. So they used to visit to Lucy Manet. Everything is fine, and then they enjoy their life, and Sydney Carton also pays visit to Lucy Manet. He takes care, he likes Lucy Manet. But what happened in the beginning, uh, Charles Charles Darnay, he proposes Lucy, and Lucy accepts, and they have decided for marriage. And Charles Darnay takes permission from Dr. Manet for marriage. Mm, Dr. Manet believes on Charles Darnay blindly. He believes on Charles Darnay, and this way marriages settle. But after marriage, after immediately, soon after the marriage, Dr. Manet comes to know that Charles Darnay comes from Avamont family, and then he again lost his memory, he loses his memory, and then he becomes mad like previous uh, situation. So he goes to this, again he becomes mad. But uh, Lucy makes him understand that no, he is not like this. And just listen what the story behind it, why he is living in London, though he comes from very good family, very real, like big estate and very rich family, but he does not like his family. So then Lucy makes Dr. Manette understand that Charles Darnay is a good human being. Then within 9 days he recovers, and now he is normal. He backs to he backs to normal. Who Dr. Manette, and this way he recovers, and they who Lucy Manette and Charles Darnay, they go for honeymoon, and then they come back, and everything, life was normal, life was going on. But what happened one day, uh, that's a Charles Darnay receives a letter from Gable. Gable, we had already discussed, that's a Gable is a, I would like to tell you that Gable, this a my here. Mm-hmm. Where is Gable? We had already discussed about Gable. Right now, I'm not able to see, but yes, I had shown you the Gable. So Gable is the servant, and he is a postmaster by profession. And Gable writes one letter to Charles Darnay. So Charles Darnay says to Dr. Manette and Lucy that I have to go to Paris because I have to take care of my servant Gable. So he reaches to the and he in that letter Gable writes to Charles Darnay that I am in prison because mm, revolutionaries has put me in the Bastille jail. So he rushes. Who rushes? The Charles Darnay rushes to Paris, and then he meets Gable, and then Gable and tells the story, narrates that's what happened, that I am not culprit, but then they have put me here. So he requests to people that he's a genuine person. And then here situation is very bad. Why? Because in the beginning we have read about Bastille cell, that Bastille prison is chaotic and revolutionaries are it was the very 14th July 1789 was a very tough time, and then for 10 years there was French Revolution. So that everywhere chaos, and everywhere situation is what we can say that they are very aggressive people, and hmm, very, what we can say that uh, very much angry people around there. And what they were targeting to elite families and rich families, and then they were one by one they try to make them pull to Bastille prison. And common people, middle class people, were very much against to rich people. So there was faction between rich people and poor people, middle class people, and middle class people were dragging to rich people, and they putting them to the jail. And and same happened with Gable. Gable was dragged by revolutionaries because he comes from good family. He works for Avermont family, and Avermont family is very much infamous family in the Paris, though they are very rich estate and very big, having very big property and everything, but then very infamous family, Evermont family. So anyhow, Gable is free, but what would happen as they come to know that Charles Darnay has come back, and then they put who revolutionaries, middle class people, and they put Charles Darnay into jail. And Charles Darnay, why? because Charles Darnay comes from the same family, Evermont family. And I told you that Evermont family had been very much infamous in France, and they were known for cruelty, for dictatorship, and for snobbery, and so many like negative, very bad people. So that common people were very much against all rich families, but especially Evermont family. So his original name is Charles Evermont, but he writes Charles Darnay. Okay, so he changes. In the beginning I told you that he does not like inheritance, he does not like title of this family, and that's why he shifted to London, and he lives in London. But then now he is in the jail. So that as Lucy and Dr. Manet come to know that Charles Darnay is not able to come back because he's prison, through letter actually they got to know, and then they are worried and they come to Dr. Manet, and Lucy Manet come to Paris, a Bastille jail. And in the in the middle, what happened? Doctor, sorry, Lucy Manet and Charles Darnay are blessed to have a baby, and that's a baby. She is the young daughter, right? So that is also one small babies in their family. So she's also there. Now what happened? That's a as Charles Darnay is in prison, so Dr. Manet comes to France and Bastille jail. So we know that in the same jail, once upon a time for 18 years, Dr. Manet was in the same jail. So that he's a gentleman, and he has lost his memory and all, but he's a very good physician, Dr. Manet. So other prisoners, they like Dr. Manet when he was in the jail. So then he recommends to his son-in-law. Now that's uh, who is he? Charles Darnay. And then he requests to make him free, and he is a gentleman, though he comes from the Evermont family, but he is very genuine, and then that's why he is living in London, and whole story he narrates, and then jailer convinced and he is free. But what happened as he frees, and that what happened, that again he is pushed to the jail. Reason is that now another story. Listen carefully. Why Charles Darnay is taken to jail? Reason is that, listen, that's another story. What happened when Dr. Manet was in jail? So he writes why he has put in the jail Dr. Manet. Now reason we will come to know, because Dr. Manet, he was the physician and a very good practitioner. So that one girl is taken, once upon a time is taken to Dr. Manet for checkup, and the girl was molested or raped by Evermont family. And who are they? They were Charles Darnay's father and uncle. They raped the girl, and then the girl's parents are killed, and the girl is saved anyhow, but then she comes from a Defarge family. So Defarge family is a they, I told you in the beginning that I let me take it, the Defarge family, the owner of wine shop in Paris suburb, the former servant of Dr. Manet. I told you that Defarge, Mr. Defarge had been the former servant of Dr. Manet. So Defarge uses his Paris wine shop as a place to organize French revolutionaries. So what he used to take, he used his wine shop for revolutionaries. And Mrs. Defarge, I have written here that the head, hard and vengeful woman. So she is the vengeful woman, and she used to write enemy's name through knitting. And she is, Mrs. Defarge is very very hard and cruel lady, we can say. Now what happened? I'm taking you to the story how Dr. Manet is present. So what happened? Dr. Manet was doing his practice very nicely, but one day one girl, I told you, that is taken to Dr. Manet, and then Dr. Manet for checkup, and then he comes to know that, because as a doctor he has, they, Defarge family tells the story that Evermont family raped father and uncle have they raped my this young girl, and then parents are killed, everything doctor. And because of insecurity and influence of rich family, Evermont family, what Evermont family, they complained against Dr. Manet, and that is why for forgery and for revenge and for insecurity, they feel insecure, and because of influence of such rich people, Dr. Manet is pushed in the jail, right? And since long 18 years he was tortured like anything, and he has lost his memory, and he is in the jail. So this was the reason. So one day what happened, when he was in the jail, Dr. Manet, Alexander Manet, so he writes one letter, and in letter he discusses about this incident, that the girl comes from Defarge family, and I was doing my practice, and the girl was taken to me for general checkup, and parents were killed by Evermont family. This way he writes one letter, and that letter he uh, like hides somewhere in the jail. But when, now this is the story, right? But when number of revolutionaries and revolutionaries used together, where Defarge's wine shop, that was the adda, that was the place where revolutionaries used to gather. So then all revolutionaries, when they go to Bastille prison, and then they do damage so many things here and there, and then all of a sudden this letter is caught by Mrs. Defarge. And as Defarge comes to know that my daughter, that the, because that girl, not daughter of Mrs. Defarge, but that girl comes from Defarge family, and then Mrs. Defarge, she, as she comes to know that Charles Darnay is none other than Charles Evermont, comes from this family, and that is why Charles Darnay is left uh, left uh, because who requested? That's a Dr. Manet requested, and on the Dr. Manet's recommendation and request, jailer makes free Charles Darnay. But then, as Mrs. Defarge uh, picks up this letter, and then she reads this letter, and then she takes a vow that I'm going to uh, kill this man, because other two who have raped, and they are already died, like Charles Darnay's father and Charles Darnay's uncle, they have already been killed. So who is in the Evermont family, who is left? Charles Darnay. So Mrs. Defarge, Mrs. Defarge thinks that I am going to take revenge from Charles Darnay, whatever he is genuine or whatever, but I have to take revenge, and that's why Mr. Charles Darnay uh, uh, against taken to the jail. Now recommendation or request is failed. Dr. Manet says that he is not that kind of fellow. He is very genuine, and he what's the fault of Charles Darnay? But no one is there to listen, because they are very much agitated crowd, and that's why no one is going to listen to Dr. Manet second time. Now, as Now next hero comes, and who is he? He is Sydney Carton. Actually, Sydney Carton also likes Dr. Lucy Manet. In the beginning I told, and but as Charles Darnay proposes, and Lucy accepts, and they have got married and blessed to have a daughter and everything. So that's why Sydney Carton, he's a he used to drink much, and he's a lawyer, and he's a good lawyer, but then he fails in his life, he spoils in life, and very careless person. In the morning he used to take alcohol, and that's why he's careless, and but he likes too much to Lucy Manet. So as he comes to know that Charles Darnay is going to be given capital punishment, he is going to be killed tomorrow. So in the beginning I forgot to tell you very important thing, that Charles Darnay and Sydney Carton resemble each other like anything. Just we can say ditto. Charles Darnay and Sydney Carton, they resemble, right? Very much resemble. So that is why Sydney Carton immediately decides that I am not going to see that Lucy's life is spoiled, and there is a spy. I told you that spy. That's a that's a British spy, Roger Clive, right? And one more spy is there. That is another spy is, yeah, Roger Clive, and yes, that's a John Bursard. So John Bursard is a spy and informer. So what happened? He talks to John Bursard that anyhow we have to save uh, Charles Darnay's life. So they decided, and he says that you have keys on the keys of that's a Bastille cell. So you just take me inside, and he before coming to Charles Darnay, what happened? Charles Darnay is given one tranquilizer, so that he is unconscious. Why? Because Sydney Carter knows that if I tell all this plan to Charles Darnay, Charles Darnay is not going to be ready. He at this cost, and he will be ready to die, but he will not accept my plan. So that Charles Darnay is given tranquilizer, he becomes unconscious, and then the spy, that John Bursard and Sydney Carton, they reaches inside, and Sydney Carton changes his dress, and he says that now Charles Darnay comes in like little bit conscious, and then he says to Bernard that just take to Charles Darnay outside the prison, and he wears his clothes, and next day Charles Darnay, Sydney Carton is killed. He is given capital punishment, and in between, Charles Darnay, Dr. Manet, and Lucy Manet, and the young baby, they all leave for London, and anyhow they all are saved. But as Mrs. Defarge comes to know that Lucy is, she understands that Charles Darnay is died, but now Lucy is Charles Darnay's wife. So she wants to take revenge from Lucy. So Mrs. Defarge rushes to Lucy's room, but Lucy is not available. So what Lucy's one caretaker, we can say that, Miss Pross, Lucy Manet's loyal red-faced maid. So Miss Pross is very loyal to Lucy, and then she goes to Lucy, and Mrs. Defarge goes to Miss Pross, and then she kills tries to kill, because she is not, she's looking for Lucy Manet. So she asks Miss Pross that where is Lucy Manet. But as she would speak something that she does not, Miss Pross does not reveal that Lucy, she cannot reveal, of course she is not able to reveal that Lucy has already left for London. So what she would speak something, but before this, as Mrs. Defarge is very much angry, and she tries to shoot Miss Pross, but all of a sudden, unfortunately, the gun is killed Mrs. Defarge herself, and she dies. And the here novel ends that Mrs. Defarge kills, by mistake kills herself, and all family like Charles Darnay and Lucy Manet and baby Manet and Dr. Alexander all are saved, and they move to London. And here Mrs. Defarge, unfortunately, or Mrs. not unfortunately, but yes, by mistake, Mrs. Defarge is also already also killed, and story ends. Right here, story ends. So this is the story of A Tale of Two Cities. One city, London, and one is Paris. Now, conclusion is that chapter 15 from the third book of A Tale of Two Cities concludes the narrative and provides a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. There is chaos, but what the hope? Tragedy in the streets of Paris. I told you that it's a very much tragic end, because Sidney Carton dies. He is the real hero of the novel, and he has a spiritual love with Lucy Manet, and very, though he is drunkard and then he does not care of himself, but then by heart he is so good. And then even though Carton goes to his death, Sidney Carton, he does so contentedly and nearly happy, but very happily, very like contentedly he dies. So this is the conclusion. As far as famous quotes, I have written for you, so you can adjust these quotes anywhere. These are the quotes. It is a far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. Right? So this is very important quote. Another, a day wasted on others is not wasted on one's self. Then there is prodigious strength in sorrow and despair, and for you and for any dear to you, I would do anything. These are the famous quotes. Many quotes are famous, but these are famous quotes I have taken from the net. So you just remember, and you should give references also. So this is the first version. Second version I would make in mixed language, which is also very important, and some other information I would add in mixed version, but that is enough for today. Thank you so much, and please write me whatever you want to listen, or you want to see, you want to watch. Right? So I definitely would like to add in the next version. Okay, thank you so much. God bless you.